the other one at the next meeting.
Right.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Yeah. Oh, and Bruce, as a side note, we haven't received a written letter of interest. We've received a verbal extension of interest. So that will translate into something written. Yeah.
But the person who submitted late, he doesn't have to submit again.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And I have not received a second letter. So if one of the board members has received that, if you could forward that on, I'll make sure everybody gets that.
Yeah. At present, Kurt, it's verbal, but we'll
Oh,
make
okay.
sure that we talk to that particular resident and that they
Okay.
actually, submit a formal letter of interest.
Great. Thank you, sir. Perfect.
And Kurt, I
I
noticed we
may
don't have
be-
an actual motion and we're just sort of spitballing here, but Gail has her hand up and I assume she wants to make a comment about this issue.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. I am aware of one of the people that has applied, and I would really like the board to consider that person. He has been an unbelievable help to our community and probably knows more than most people in the community about issues, problems, history, and can help with that. And I'd like him to get fair consideration. And I don't see why we have to wait on that decision. If we have somebody that's interested, and unfortunately, we can't say a lot about lots of people being interested, and I wish people would be more interested, especially outside of our community as well. But I think it's the right thing to do if we have a volunteer that wants to do that, to consider allowing him to take that position. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
If possible, I would like to explain the lateness, the reason for me being a bit tardy in submitting.
You can, if you want to, Kel, that's fine.
I, for all intents and purposes, truly thought that I had submitted the hit the send button on the email with the attachment prior to the deadline. I really, really did. In fact, I think it was the next morning I happened to see Cynthia and Murray at the in person, and I mentioned to them that I had submitted it, and they pointed out to me that they hadn't heard that. And they encouraged me to go home and check. And yeah, lo and behold, yeah, I had messed up and got distracted or called away for some reason. There was a phrase or a paragraph in the attachment that I needed to, I knew I needed to look up and find the correction. And that's what delayed me. It should have been done sooner, but there's no time like the last minute, right? I say that in jest. I think everybody knows how that happens, right? So the severity of me, how many days I was late, I think it was like 1, maybe 2. I forget. I could go back and count. It's certainly much better than not submitting, not taking any effort at all to attempt to meet the deadline, which apparently the other person now is just a verbal. In fact, this kind of smacks of purposely delaying so that other person can.
Kurt, we need to put limits on this because we start getting into narrative.
Okay, that was the explanation. And I put myself on the mercy of the board on whether that constitutes a significant enough reason to not have me.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments.
I Kurt, I noticed a chat, Nick Weber, you said that you didn't receive the email blast or even maybe the self-nomination blast. All I can say is Westwind sent out the email blast for the call for nominations back in January for the deadline. I think it was the end of February for the actual election when we had 2 openings. And then Westwind also sent out the email blast in last month with a deadline of June 5th at midnight. And so if I guess I would check with Westwind to make sure, Mr. Weber, that you are on the Westwind email blast. They're the ones that they send out the email blasts about snow events coming up and what everybody has to do to get prepared for snow events. They send out the quarterly newsletter, what's going on in Green Valley Ranch North. It's all coordinated through Town Center Metro District, but Westwind. So, Mr. Weber, I would encourage you to contact either Audrey or April, Audrey Brown, I think it is, or April Delgado at Westwind to make sure that your email is on their list for the blast.
And if you did get a notice of tonight's meeting, you're on their list because that was emailed out as well.
It's
Okay.
important. It's important for us to recognize that, and I'm vaguely recalling my memory of querying Westwind. I think that it was I think it was April earlier this year, because I asked her, what type of coverage do we have with respect to the residents? I think she said 6 of 10 residents have accounts with Westwind. So it's only going to be 6 of 10 residents who are receiving the email blasts, assuming they haven't blocked them, or, it said, block sender of some sort, or it goes into their trash. So our coverage is, it is what it is with respect to Westwind. Residents have to take responsibility for wanting to be notified and through that mechanism. So I'm not sure how to improve that.
Mr. Weber does have his hand up. So
Yeah,
Mr. Weber,
off theirs. Yeah, so I do get the notifications of all the meetings and other Westwind things, but I did go through my email and I did not get anything from Westwind in January or in April regarding the elections or the self-nomination stuff.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened. I would check with Westwind to double check or figure out what happened. The notice of vacancy went out in May. I do know that.
yes, sir. Okay.
But if you're interested, Mr. Weber, submit a letter of interest.
Next item of business then is to review the financial statements for the period ending May 31st, 2023. Actually, it's going to be April 30th, 2023. And Shelby's with us. Shelby, I'll go ahead and I'll put the financials up on the screen if you'd like me to.
That would be perfect. Thanks, Kurt. Yeah, and we actually have not received the May property tax distribution report from Denver County yet. And that's typically kind of the last piece of information we're waiting on to do the financials. So that's why we're kind of 1 month in arrears here. So looking at page 10 of the packet, this is the balance sheet for all governmental funds of the district as of April 30th. Total assets were just under 12.2 million, consisting primarily of cash and investments. And of that, just under 10 million is restricted to debt service, with the remainder available for general operations and or capital projects. Total liabilities are about 96,000. This does represent the amount due to Town Center Metropolitan District. And you'll see that that amount directly correlates to the receivable from County Treasurer in the general fund, as those net property tax collections are transferred to Town Center. And then total fund balances for all funds, just under 12.1 million. Page 11 is the general fund budget to actual. Total revenues here, just over 1.3 million on a budget of 2.7 million. Property tax collections through April were about 53%, which is consistent with prior years. Specific ownership taxes trending right in line with budget through April. And then the town center reimbursement for legal, where we have a $165,000 variance that directly correlates to the legal fees and election costs incurred through April. Looking at expenditures, about 1.3 million, also compared to a budget of 2.7. Legal fees and election is just about 10,000 through April. Election will see significantly under that budget since the district did not have a contested election in 2023. And then about just under 1.3 million has been transferred to town center pursuant to the agreement between Ebert and town. Page 12 is the Conservation Trust Fund. So here's where we record the quarterly payments for the lottery proceeds. So through April, we've received one quarterly payment of about $30,000. So compared to the annual budget, we are trending ahead of that and will continue to get payments each quarter through the end of the year. Page 14 of the packet is
Excuse me, Shelby, are the conservation trust funds automatically, excuse me, sent over to TCMD? Or do we have to make a specific request? Because I noticed that the transfer budget amount is 150, even though we've received some, I mean, because those are used specifically for, say, parks or recreational things, correct?
Correct. Yep. So the funds are held by Ebert until such point that Town Center submits a request to Ebert for reimbursement there. And we don't currently have a request for reimbursement. That, of course, would go to the board for consideration. So until we get that and until such request is approved, Ebert would continue to hold these funds.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so page 14 is the debt service fund. Total revenues here just over 3.1 million. Again, property taxes 53% collected. Specific ownership taxes again trending right in line with budget. Interest income, I didn't point this out on earlier pages, but just due to the kind of continued interest rate increases through 2023 so far, we are exceeding budget on the interest income through April. And then expenditures through April were just about 32,000, which were the treasurer's fees on collections through April, as well as the trustee fees to UMB. I will note that 1/2 of the budgeted interest on the 2018A bonds was paid on June 1st, and we'll see that reflected on the cash sheet as well. Page 15 is the capital reserve. Initially funded through bond proceeds. Only activity here through April, about 13,000. Again, the anticipated transfer to Town Center, those capital expenditures, again, would kind of coordinate with Town Center for any requests there that would come to the board for approval before any payments are made. And then last fund is the capital reserve from the 1 mil collections. So about $86,000 in total revenues. Same story there on property taxes and specific ownership taxes. And then on the expenditure side, just under 1,000, which is really the county treasurer's fees. We are required to include the 2023 budget assumptions. So those are the next several pages. Followed by the scheduled debt service requirements to maturity, which is on page 23 of the packet, just showing those scheduled interest and principal payments through maturity. Page 24 of the packet is the property tax schedule. This shows collections by month. And again, that is through April as we are waiting on the May reports. Again, 53%. We can see that's consistent with prior year, which was about 52%. And then last page of the financial statement package is the scheduled cash position. This kind of shows the balances as of April 30th to tie to those financial statements and then subsequent activity. Don't have a whole lot to point out here. As I mentioned earlier, about halfway down the page, you will see the June 1st interest payments reflected for both series of bonds. Any other questions on the April financials?
I've got a question for you, Shelby. The service level, which is talked about in the 2018 IGA, that's what we're looking at here on page 16 of the report, page 25 of the document of the board package. Looks like there's 6.2 million. Is that what remains on that service level? Is that what that's showing?
That's correct. Yes. So
Okay.
the little red sliver is what's been transferred to town through April 2023. The blue was years prior to that, and then the green represents remaining, which part of that will be 2023 and then 24 moving forward.
Okay. Can you translate that using just, jungle math, whatever, any way to look at how many years that equates to with respect to by the time that that obligation is met by Ebert? How many years does that translate into?
That's a good question. 1 second. So I would think that if property taxes are consistent with where they are this year, then by the end of 25 would be the approximate date.
Okay, roughly 2.5 years.
Yep. Certainly don't hold me to that, but.
Oh, no. That's why I said jungle math, and that's fine. You're off the hook. Okay. Thank you for that.
Of course.
Any other questions about financials?
I have none.
None.
I submitted one via chat message.
Oh, okay, yeah. Shelby Kell has said, what are the 862,917 capital expenditures approved by Ebert? When and how were these approved, and where is the approval documented?
Yeah, a great question. So as of now, there are no expenditures that have been approved to utilize that appropriation. We did budget for that in conjunction and conversations with both Ebert and Town Center last fall when we were compiling the 2023 budgets. Similar with the conservation trust funds, any proposed projects to utilize those funds would first come to the Ebert Metro board member for review and consideration. And then if or when those were approved, then those funds would be expended. So as of now, to my knowledge, there are no selected projects to incur that.
So really that's the line in the budget, but that number was put in as part of the budget process as the, I guess, appropriated amount, but nothing gets transferred over until a further step. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yes. And just to clarify the verbiage on that, Kelvin's asking, why does it say approved? So that's just to clarify that those are capital expenditures that would need to be approved by Ebert Metro in order to expend those funds, to clarify that no other board or district would have the ability to approve on behalf of Ebert. That makes sense.
Yeah, Shelby, this is Lewis. I believe that's the same conversation we had in the construction of the 2023 budget, that we questioned the wording of that line item, and evidently we didn't push far enough to get it changed, that it's the
It probably should read requiring
proposed
approval by Ebert board or something like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll make a note of that, and we'll change that for the 2024 budget when we get working on
Very
that.
good. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelby.
Hey, Kurt,
next-
while we're here, I want to ask Jerry a question. 'Cause I think he's still on. And the question is, what remains to be done, if he knows, with respect to capital projects in Ebert? Because I know that and I don't know what the relationship is between us and Denver and who pays for what, but we've got medians south of Green Valley Ranch Boulevard that haven't been completed. There's no curbs, and I don't know if they're waiting to potentially even widen that or make that 3 lanes instead of 2. down to, I think it's not quite to 38th, but there's a, whatever that our southern boundary is. And then north of Green Valley Ranch Boulevard up to Tower, that whole median, I think, is still pending being built, because there's no curbs on that median whatsoever. And I'm just wondering if Jerry has any insight on the timing and who's responsible for funding that, if he can weigh in.
Yeah, I can address that, Murray.
Super, thank you.
The
Yep.
medians, both all along Tower Road, are the city and county of Denver's responsibility. And so it falls within their budgeting process and their allocation of funds. I know that, Oakwood has been pushing them for a number of years to get those done. But they obviously haven't had much success. But those are not district projects.
Got it.
So
there's no shared cost in those, is what you're saying?
There's not, no.
Okay. Can you think of anything that remains to be built out from a capital projects? I know Tower Farms has already funded the 2.9, went toward that. We had some side meetings on all that. That remains to be finished, that potentially would necessitate use of those funds?
So if you're talking about the 860,000.
Yes.
Okay, so those funds are for basically replacement capital projects within the district boundaries. To answer your original question, I don't believe there's any capital projects that Ebert is responsible for moving forward, with the exception of maybe a street light or maybe 2 street lights or a cost share with Denver and adjacent property owners. That 860,000 could be used within the district boundaries to do capital replacement projects that the Ebert board accepts and approves.
Okay. My understanding of the, and we're talking about the 2018 series bond fund, which is where these monies came from, that
Right.
those are specifically intended for facility improvements, which are defined in the 2018 IGA, and that anything that goes to repair or replace, i.e. that's the capital repair and replacement fund, is the 1 mil bond fund. So I want to make sure that we're very clear with the language that we're using with respect to how these funds can be used, because this again, it was don't be confused with the capital reserve. That's actually not a good way to put that. This is the bond proceeds fund, which was specifically for facilities, which is defined in the IGA, and the CRRF, capital repair and replacement fund, is for what you just described, which is to update, refresh existing projects that were already funded as a facility improvement. Does that make sense?
That's the opposite of my understanding. My understanding was that 2018 bond fund was specifically for capital replacements within the district.
Okay, because the language in the IGA suggests otherwise, because it talks specifically about the capital repair and replacement fund, i.e. the word replacement is not an accidental use of that word, and that's to repair and replace facilities that have, either they've degraded to some level or they need, they've exceeded their useful life. And that's what that CRRF fund is for, i.e. the reserves, right? So reserves to replace facilities that have already been funded with an original funding for that project, i.e. the capital funding.
Murray, I know that we have, there's some support, I think, through what was budgeted on the town center side.
Yeah.
So Jerry and I can follow up with that district and specifically the individual that kind of helps oversee the capital projects, and we can get some clarification out to this board.
Okay, because I'm just speaking from the language that's in the IGA, because that's what was agreed.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. All right, that's all I got.
Jerry,
Thank
while
you.
you're on the line, I see there's a note in chat from a Ms. Nicole Elliott. She's talking about, she says she's a resident of GVR, had been fined $200 for landscaping that's been done for 2 years. She was told by Audrey that Audrey Brown at Westwind that she would have to join this call, present her emails showing I complied with everything Westwind had required. That looks to me to be a TCMD or a TDC issue. Could you maybe follow up with Ms. Elliott to see that? Because it's not something that the board, Ms. Elliott, the board is not involved in covenant enforcement. That's all done by TCMD through their contract with Westwind. But since Jerry is the district manager for TCMD, that's why I'm asking Jerry if he could chime in.
Yeah, I'll put my contact information in the chat, and then you can reach out to me and we'll get that figured out.
Thank you.
Okay,
Jerry.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other
Thank you,
questions on
Jerry.
financials? Okay, we can move on then to the checklist, the current checklist. I had asked Shelby to provide that for us, and it's payments that have been made since your last meeting. Shelby, did you want to go through any of that at all?
I think just a couple notes. So we do have payments made since the last meeting, which is the top half of this. And then that second half are bills that are currently in process to be paid. Just a couple notes, really. Most everything here is for your consultant. So for CLA is the accountants, Kurt's firm, as well as Evan's firm. We also had the paying agent fees to UMB for the bond trustee fees. And then the only thing I would note, you'll see in the payables section, 3 different bills to the city and county of Denver. They do have an annual kind of oversight or monitoring fee of $3,000, and the last couple of years were somehow overlooked. So we have 3 years to kind of pay and get caught up and current with the city. So just wanted to point that out. Any questions on this listing?
Shelby, I appreciate, I know that Kurt, somehow the city and county got something to Kurt, and but those old, were they budgeted, or is that something we're gonna have to take out, like move $6,000 or whatever from maybe the election budget we didn't use this year to pay those, or is this all included in our current budget somehow?
Good question. So the current year fee, I believe, is included in the budget. So then that would leave the $6,000 for the last 2 years that may not have been explicitly budgeted, though I think through miscellaneous and contingency line items, we'd still be covered. So I don't think that this would require Ebert or Town Center to do a budget amendment at this point.
Okay,
Just
thank
a point of clarification there that the expense will be recorded in the appropriate line so that it doesn't get lost. In other words, this year's budget, if we got it right, was a $3,000 amount, and we've got $3,000 for this year's amount due. The other 2 $3,000 amounts, or the $6,000, should also be recorded in the same account as an overage, and we'll rely on unspent funds in another area rather than represented in some other way.
Yes. Yep. That's exactly right, Louis.
Okay. Thanks, Shelby.
Thank you.
Board, any questions on the current payables?
And Kurt, thanks for catching that.
Yes, sir. I can't believe Denver didn't fight harder earlier to try to get their money.
Yeah.
But at least we're caught up. That's the main thing. Thank you, Shelby, for doing that.
Yeah. Kurt and board, could I provide just a really quick update on the 2022 audit?
Yes.
Please.
Okay, so just due to kind of the planned transition at the end of last year and early this year, the audit field work, it was pushed a little bit later than what we would ideally want. So we are wrapping up that draft. I did just want to point out, just based on earlier conversations, we'll get that draft to Murray and Bruce kind of for your preliminary review of that, as well as to Evan as district legal counsel. And then, you know, kind of once we have your sign off, so to speak, we can share it with the full board. And then, as Kurt mentioned, we will need an additional meeting to approve that audit and or approve an extension if we're not going to be able to get it done with the auditors by July 31st. So I would expect that we have that draft to Murray and Bruce and Evan by the end of this week.
Oh, fantastic.
Thanks, Shelby. Do you think, I mean, no, I know last year because of issues with the audit, not related to what you're talking about, we had to ask for an extension. Do you think we're going to need an extension this year, or do you think we'll be able to get it done by the timeline?
I'm hoping we'll be able to get it done by July 31st. Just kind of depends on the auditor's availability as well. And just to be really candid, most of the firms providing these services are, it's just a really, kind of a hard time for them, just getting everything done. So fingers crossed we get it done. It will be kind of tight to get it turned around by July 31st. If not, and we have to do an extension, I would expect that it would be very shortly after July 31st that we get it finalized.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Shelby.
Okay. If there's no other questions about the financials, thank you very much, Shelby. I appreciate it. Next item is the district covenant control and restriction status report. I did send this as a separate email to the board and didn't know if you wanted to review this or not, because this isn't general information for the public.
Now, what I want to do, and this is one of those things that we'll have to work on turning this into something that could be useful from an informative standpoint, find out what's going on, what are the prevailing issues, district wide, and maybe we can Pareto those, but I would think that, maybe Westwind has some ability to take all that raw data and turn it into some informative reports, but that's, I don't know. Jerry, do you know what Westwind can do? Are you familiar with the system that they're using?
Yeah, and what they sent out was not helpful. I would agree with you 100%. The person filling in for April is not as up to speed on the reporting capabilities that Westwind has. Typically what they do is they take that 367-page document and they pull it into some graphics on what the covenant violations are and what the most violations on down, and they give a table of what those are, along with some graphs, some bar charts and pie graphs and things like that. So there's a couple of things missing in April's absence that the person filling in was not able to do, but I can make sure that they get the right person on that and we can get that out to the board.
Yeah, and that's a Pareto, and that's useful and that's meaningful to board members and certainly to the public. And that's kind of where I want to go with this, is let's just make that part of our quarterly regular meeting diet, just have it in there so we can kind of see what's going on in the district, because we haven't had that in the past. And I think that'd be useful. Certainly it'd be useful for the board of directors to kind of see what's going on. Kurt, if you and Jerry could work together to do that, that'd be fantastic. That'd be great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Klink wanted to know when April will be back. She's on leave. I have no idea when she'll be back in.
She's on maternity leave.
Right.
And I'm not exactly sure either when she comes back, but I think it's probably within the next month.
Thanks, Jerry.
Well, we hope it goes well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the next item then is district work orders, a status report. And I did forward that as a separate email as well. Jerry had provided that.
Yeah, so you'll see the majority of the work orders are landscaping related, fencing related, and mailboxes. Obviously it's landscape season, so that's when most of our irrigation calls come in, landscaping grounds, coming off, snow season where people run over trees. Unfortunately, on Monday morning, we did have a car driven into the living room of a house off Maxwell. So that came in as a fencing work order for the district, but obviously a much worse situation for the homeowner.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was a stolen car and the person got out and ran away. So the police didn't catch him. And so there's just insurance claims all over the place on it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Common story.
Job security for public safety. That's the way it works out.
Yeah. A little feedback for you, Jerry, on the Canadian thistles, because I bike around the district and look for that stuff. it seems like the work that's being done from prior years is starting to catch up, and the prevalence of the Canadian thistles, from my perspective, because I used to see them all over the place and they look like Christmas trees, and they're declining in population. So whatever your landscaper or whoever you're having treat those is doing, please keep them working on it because it's working.
Appreciate that feedback. And, in addition to that, if you do see any, please let me know, because we can dispatch them out quickly to get any of that stuff that you see, even in singular fashion. We just kind of want to keep beating this stuff back, because it in the past, as anybody that's lived here for 4 or 5 years knows, that those Canadian thistle will put up a wall. And
Yes.
so we want to just eradicate those as often as we can. So anytime you see one of those, please let us know.
Well, I'll give you one right now. Between on the First Creek Trail between Dunkirk and probably the clubhouse, if someone just wants to take a quick spin through there, because I was just through there today, I saw probably about 30 or 40 of them, and they're still in the somewhat of the immature stage. They're not flowering, but if they were to just spend some time in there and knock those, that'd be helpful.
So First Creek Trail between Dunkirk and
the clubhouse.
The clubhouse at Fair in District 1.
Fairway Villas Clubhouse.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Jerry, there is a question from one of the participants, and it's about what happened to work orders prior to 2022 that were never addressed. Received an email stated my work order had been closed. I mean, if they're not completed in that calendar year, are they carried over to the next calendar year?
Yes, they are carried over.
Great.
Yeah, I'm familiar with, I think, based on the author of that particular chat, it's specifically regarding the iron fence around the mailbox units. I can't think of that main drag coming into Fairway Villas 1. But
54th Avenue.
Yeah. So the fence is peeling pretty bad through there. The paint is peeling, and I think that was painted a little while ago. But just if someone could go take a look in there, that'd be pretty helpful, because it looks pretty tough.
Okay.
And another question from Mr. Klink is, when will the fencing along the perimeter of Fairway Villas be painted?
And he's referring to the iron fence, right?
Right. So that is on a phase schedule right now, because of how much linear feet we have of it. We're taking it into different chunks as to which stretches of that iron railing fencing is degrading the worst, and we are tackling that, on a phased approach.
Thanks, Jerry. Any other questions from the board regarding the work orders? All right, we can move on to statutory compliance. We've completed the election.
I would tell you though, before we move on, Cal thought that fence, because he's the one asked about the perimeter fence, and he said it was originally scheduled for last December, but got postponed. So was the whole thing, or was it that phase that you're talking about, Jerry?
Cal, which stretch specifically were you looking for? You're on mute, Cal.
You muted
Unmute
yourself.
Okay. In April last year, I submitted a work order, or maybe it was the year before that. And anyway, all of a sudden we noticed that it was going to be painted in December, but it was way too cold. So anyway, it got postponed, and I thought I would have thunk that it would have been something to pick up and start doing right away when the weather got better, instead of since it was previously scheduled. It's seems like it ought to have been like a natural thing to pick up and get going with right away, instead of restudying for phases and stuff like that.
Where specifically, Cal?
Okay.
Is it your
work
property,
order that
or
I
is it
submitted,
somewhere
I had
else?
a map identifying areas, not only for my yard, which I think I'm only able to submit for the iron fence behind my house. But also I walked the fence and noticed a lot of other properties that need their fence painted as well. And in fact, I didn't talk to them, but I saw the contractors out there walking the fence and identifying how far, what the extent was. So all that information, I think, is already collected by your company, probably not yourself, but somebody, one of your minions, one of your staff.
Okay, I'll check into it and follow up with that work order that you submitted.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Okay, back to statutory compliance, excuse me. Elections have been completed, oaths of office have been filed with the Denver County Clerk and with the Department of Local Affairs. So we're complete with the election, and hopefully we won't have to do that again until 2025. The next update for that statutory compliance calendar is the submission of the annual audit, which Shelby's already talked about. And then we move into the budget season where we're waiting for assessed values, initial assessed values from the city and county of Denver, which are due in August, and then we'll start on the budgeting process. So we are up to date and everything's been taken care of. Murray, you had asked about adding something to the compliance calendar regarding that payment to Denver. What I've done is just on our calendar, I put a tickler just to make sure that it's covered every year. They've got our contact information, so I think we've got that nailed down.
Right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Is there any other business from the board? Hearing none, the next is I was asked to put down a potential executive session. Is there a motion from the board to go into executive session for receiving legal advice on specific legal questions in accordance with section 24-6-4024B of Colorado Revised Statutes pertaining to restrictive covenants applicable to real property within the district?
I so move.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Outstanding. Thank you very
So-
much.
So Kurt, are you gonna put us into a separate room because we have to come back out of and other people, obviously the public can't go into the executive session with us. Will you put us into a separate room? How are we gonna do this?
I can try to put us in a separate room. I'm not certain as to how to do that. If members of the public want to hang on, or if they want to dial back in, we can do that as well. I'm looking right now. Still working. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
Yeah, Kurt, there ought to be some kind of a button to go to breakout rooms.
That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. For some reason, I am not finding that.
I'm not very savvy at it either.
Yeah, and I can't do it because I'm not the administrator. It's on you, Kurt. Sorry.
No worries.
If you were 28, Kurt, you would just Google it on your phone and it would tell you how to do
I'd
it.
just be able to bring it right up. I know it.
Yeah.
Let's
In the
ask
meantime,
Let's
in the
ask Harley.
meantime-
Does Harley know how to do it?
Yeah, I Googled it and it said, click on breakout room. So I'm of no help either.
And I do not see that button for the life of me, so.
And I'm 46 years old too, so I'm not 28 by any means.
I guess the alternative, unfortunately, is that we'll need to ask everybody on the from the public to leave and maybe come back at 8:30. Is that enough time for us to discuss the issues, Evan? 25 minutes?
Well, we can certainly cram it into that amount of time, if that's what you want to do, sure.
And in the meantime, is it possible to elaborate a little bit more on what the topic is? You did, I hear, talked about the covenants. So it's like you're discussing a potential change to the covenants or conformance to covenants.
Well, the board doesn't have authority to change covenants. That requires, all the property owners.
Okay, so
So,
that's where I'm like asking, could you give a little bit more insight about the topic?
Cal, if we make a decision or decide to come out, we'll come out into public session and have a fuller discussion, but until we've discussed with our attorney, it's just between the board and our attorney right now. Other than
the general topic is
description in the
covenants.
agenda.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
my
Kurt-
research of
Kurt, I think that we
statutes
just
and
need
stuff
to,
and Freedom of Information Act has led me to believe that there needs to be a little bit more information about it can't be so nebulous just for future reference. Okay, that being said, I'm going to go bye-bye.
Murray, I'm sorry.
Kurt, I think the ticket here is let's reconvene with the public at 8:45.
Yes, sir.
That'll give us plenty of time, not have to rush through our executive session. So you'll have to dismiss everybody and leave the board on and not admit anybody in. I think that's going to be the fastest path to getting this done.
Yes, sir.
So we'll just verbally invite the public to come back at 8:45. Is everybody okay with that?
Fine
Bruce?
with me.
That works with me.
Louis, thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
that's good with me.
Okay.
So members of the public, if you would just go ahead and disconnect. If not, I'll go ahead and disconnect you and then we'll let you back in at 8:45. Shelby, you won't have to come up. She's gone. I was going to say she doesn't have to come back.
Yeah, she doesn't have to come back. I don't know who Nubble 141 is, but they'll have to be booted as well. It looks like we're good now. Okay.
Got Harley Gifford.
Yes, that's me. I'm one of the attorneys.
Oh, sorry. Harley, we haven't met. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Hi,
we need
Harley.
we
Hello.
need Harley. We need Harley and
Poor
Evan.
Harley.
Yeah, I'm just some guy.
Okay. All right.
So we'll
Go ahead,
enter an executive session at 8:00.
I move we come out of executive session.
Second,
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much. So we are back in general session at 8:45.
I believe we've had a discussion with our attorney pursuant to Colorado law regarding what you're allowed to discuss with your attorney in executive session. And our attorney will provide us a certification that we can put on our website to that effect. But I believe that there are a couple of motions. Murray's going to make a motion and I'll make a motion.
You want me to go first, Bruce?
Yes.
Okay. I'm making a motion to authorize the Ebert Metropolitan District to pursue legal action with respect to enforcement of district covenants and to ensure that, or with the express purpose of ensuring they are evenly applied across the district for the express purpose of supporting the master declarations, Article 1, Section 1.2, which specifically says to enhance and protect the quality, value, aesthetic nature, desirability, and attractiveness of the community area.
Is there a second?
I second.
Lewis can.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion regarding the motion?
Nope.
Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Downtown, this is Victoria Island.
Who's ever not muted, please mute yourself. I'm looking to see who you are.
Made a little very.
Leslie, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Thank you.
I have a motion to, I move that we create a litigation committee to assist with this particular legal action. That would be Murray and myself, so that we can confer with the attorneys and not be running afoul of open records laws. The committee will have the okay to approve the final version of the legal action that is filed, but all substantive decision in the legal action, including settlement discussions or agreements, must be brought to the full board.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Yeah, I seconded that, Kurt.
Thank you, Murray. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much.
I have one other thing to mention, Kurt.
Yes, sir.
And the rest, I guess, to Bruce and Murray, but there's also the committee that was established to negotiate with Town Center Metro on the eventual transition of district matters. And in light of the change of the officers in the meeting today, is that who would be your committee of two that would pursue that type of meeting?
I thought we said it would be the president and the treasurer, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken.
Okay, all right, that's fine. We'll work on that basis.
Okay. Any other business?
I
Hearing
don't
none.
have
we'll-
anything.
Oh, thank you.
We have anybody in chat we need to answer?
I've got one in chat. Are there any broad issues what the board could share with us?
I can't.
I'd
think of
rather,
any.
at this point, if Evan, if you or Harley want to give anything at this point, but I'd rather wait until the actual complaint is filed before, once the complaint's filed, it's a public record, and we'll make sure it gets posted on the website at that point.
Yeah, I think that's the best approach at this point.
Okay. If there's no other business, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
We've got
moved.
one hand. Do we want to
Oh.
entertain any public comments at the end? I see that there's one hand up. Gail's got her hand up. Anybody opposed to that?
No, go
I'm
ahead.
not opposed. If
Go
Gail
ahead,
wants to
Gail.
say something, that's fine.
Okay, go ahead, Gail.
Yeah, my question is, I don't think, I don't know what this is about with, that you just voted on. Can you give us a little bit of background about what is necessitating what you just voted on?
Bruce just mentioned how we're handling this issue, Gail, because it's a legal issue, which is why we had to go into executive session, and it's not for public consumption at this time because of the sensitivity, and the information could be valuable to the people who were contemplating engaging. So that's the purpose of executive session. So when it comes time when we can disclose with the public, rest assured that we will.
Okay,
Yeah, the motion that Murray made was we've authorized legal action against TCMD for purposes of consistent enforcement of covenants throughout the Ebert district. That's in a nutshell. The motion is recorded and was more detailed, but that in a nutshell, that's what the legal action is about, covenant enforcement and having it done consistently across the board.
thank you, Bruce. That
Consistent, yeah,
was-
consistently across all covenants, right?
Okay, yeah, that was very helpful. Also, may I just ask one thing? I heard a rumor and I don't know where I heard it, but the fact that Town Center may be leaving, having anything to do with Fairway Villas. And is there any truth to that, or what's going on? I know nothing about it. I don't know what has gone on, but there are a bunch of people that have heard this. And so is there any explanation or any information you could provide at this point about what the difficulties might be or what's going on?
I'll be happy
Yeah,
to
over the
comment on that
last
very,
couple of meetings
okay.
of the board, there have been references to what we're calling transition issues in terms of Town Center getting rid of their responsibilities for, I think they're focusing on, we'll be initially focusing on the sub-districts, but nothing is definite yet. There's been no meeting between the boards, even a working meeting of, less than quorum numbers for, I don't know, 6 months or so, although we've been trying to have these meetings. So that's in the works, but nothing's finalized. If it happens, yes, at some point, sub-districts 1 and 4 would not be managed by Town Center anymore, and they would have reverted to something that Ebert would be responsible for.
Thank you, Bruce.
Okay, Kurt, I think that's it. We've cleared the chat and cleared the hands.
All right, sir. We can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Outstanding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harley.
thank you, Kurt, thank
Evan.
you, Harley.
Thank you all.
Evan.
Thanks, Harley. Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Thank
Evan.
you, fellow directors, and thank the
Night,
public for,
everyone.
See you later.
for attending.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Gail.
yeah.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody in
you,
the public.
guys.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody in the public for attending. Bye-bye.